night was actually part of a module that I developed for a big telecommunications company, actually the number 2 in the world for their corporate university in Barcelona. It was a part of a course called Leading High-Performing Teams, but it's actually, I've adapted it to Brahman world thinking, and it's basically to do with understanding and working with complexity in the world. A very simple way to understand and therefore apply it to ourselves is if I take a tennis ball and throw it on the floor, the first bounce will be high, and the second bounce will be less high because it's losing force in contact with the ground. The third bounce will be less high, and so on. And the last bounces are all over the place, right? So you throw a ball on the ground, boom, 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 right? That's how it goes. So when there's power, there is order. And when there's no power left, there's chaos. So chaos is a symptom of a loss of power. So in the beginning, our lives were very ordered because we were very powerful. The whole of the world, everything, nature, our relationships, even in ourselves and between ourselves, everything was so ordered that we didn't even have to think about it. As we lost power, things started to go all over the place. And in a way it had to happen because the tree had to grow. So that one world, the one system, the one family actually started to go all over the place because there was less power in the souls and less power in the things. So collectively and individually, if there is chaos around us, it's because we are weak. So if individually my life is just crazy, it will not order itself. I have to become more powerful. And in fact, that's how the world goes back to how it was in the beginning. The souls gain power, and then the world starts to order itself. So individually, if I order myself, that is, if I get more spiritual power inside of me, my life will reorganize itself around me. And that's a good thing, right? But it's a challenge. Now, if we put this in a sort of a context behind me, you can see, in fact, I don't even need to see the screen because I can see the reflection in the glass. So you see, it's a good thing, it's like having a TV in front of me, but back to front. We've got a picture of what's that? That's it. What happened? I blinked. We've got a very clear picture of a hurricane, and a very clear picture of the eye of the hurricane, which is like, in this particular one, it's about 25 kilometers across the radius of the eye of the storm, so to say. So you can see how big a hurricane is, like hundreds of kilometers from one side to the other. Now near the eye, the winds around there are very, very fast, very, very fast, like 200, 300 kilometers per hour. But within the eye, they're only 25 kilometres per hour. So what's a good place to be if a hurricane comes? Yeah, perhaps that's what they tell people at high. If they're on a boat in the high sea, they have to find the eye of the storm. Now, in a practical sense, what does that mean? I've got two options. I can be carried by the winds of circumstance, the chaos around me, or I can adopt I can become a protagonist, which means I will take the reins into my hands and I will start to reorganize myself by becoming more powerful spiritually. And it's not easy, because even the word protagonist means, from the Greek, it's actually a Greek word, agonia is a Greek word which means agony, right? So protagonist is the one that faces the agony first, the one that faces the thing, the one that faces. And to do that, you need to be courageous, you need to be powerful. If you're passive and everything is around you is going crazy, you're going to be carried by it. And there's a big difference between playing the victim, and it really is an illness, victimitis. You start to blame things, you start to blame people, you start to see problems, you start to criticize. Even today, I was having a talk with someone. If we look at our organisation, you see some souls that are powerful and a lot of souls that are not very powerful. So what do you expect? You expect order, and not really. You have a choice. You can be a victim of the craziness that goes on, or you can be a protagonist and do something else. Start to call the shots in your life, rather than having other things call the shots for you. So the context for all of this is actually, we have to understand, first of all, things are not going to get better. Things are going to get worse, and much worse than they are now. Much, much, much worse than they are now. And we have to get better while things get worse. Isn't that great? Otherwise, I will also be carried around, I'll be also carried along by the craziness, if you look at how I have to understand and deal with complexity, it's around me. I just have to, the confluence age is a mental age, right? It's an internal spiritual age. Because if we open our eyes and open our ears, all we see and hear is Kali Yuga, right? Even our own bodies. They're in a Tamapradhan state, and they're going to become more and more and more Tamapradhan. So isn't that great? So even the matter is going down and down. And we'll have to start to try to reward, because look at the markets, they're all up and down. What drives the world economy is actually debt, It's debt. If there were no debt, there would be no banks. And even the Federal Reserve, if you maybe you don't know this, but the Federal Reserve is not even a government organisation. It's a consortium of banks. So the ones that print the dollars is a consortium of banks, a private company. It's not the US government. So who prints the dollars which run the world economy is a consortium of banks. And the basis of the movement is the debt. In the same way that human beings, our lives are moved by the desires that are born out of emptiness, right? Because there's emptiness in the soul, we want things and we have things and we go after things, and we start to move everything because of our individual collective desires. And so the economy is no different. It's based on a whole. It's not based on something solid. So if everyone went to the banks to get their money out, or the financial institutions, if everyone went at the same, you know how much you'd find? They're only about 7%. 7% of the wealth that is said to exist actually exists. The rest of it is a promise. in the future. In the future things will get better, but they won't. So it's, you know, the markets are crazy a lot because of that. And the environment we know is out of control. Political upheaval here and there, and this is Brazil is in the process of throwing out a president at the moment. And people working with teams up and down, across, and, you know, we don't know who and how and where and how to organise things very well. You know, it's not so easy anymore. And, you know, our personal lives can be very much like this picture here. Do you know anyone like that? Huh? It's just confused. And so we're pretty good, actually, at simple things. You know, when the cause equals the effect. Let's say the recipe equals the biscuits. We're pretty good at that. In fact, there are some people that can't even do that, right? But we are programmed to be simple. It's easy. When 1 and 1 equals 2, we feel comfortable. But when 1 and 1 equals 10 or 15, we can't understand it. So when something is complicated, if simple is when the cause equals the effect, complicated is when there are many causes leading to an effect. For example, plane crashes. Now, how long do they take to figure out that one, what happened? Years. Could be years, especially if they can't find the black box. But there are so many causes to a plane crash. Human causes, meteorological causes, mechanical causes, you know, just a freak wind at the wrong time, and the plane comes down. So it requires experts actually to understand complicated things. That's why in the golden age they don't need advisors, but in the iron age everyone has to have an advisor. The whole industry of advisors. Now there are coaches and coaches. They're all of the redundant professionals generally. Can't get another job, so they become a coach. Not all of them. Because things are very complicated. Now, when things get complex, when there are many causes and many effects at the same time. For example, I've got a picture here. What do you think it is? What is it? What is it? Huh? A network. A network of what?
Our thoughts.
Actually, it's a map of the internet. Someone sat down and drew it. How many people in the world understand that? There's about half a dozen people, you know. The whole thing, you know, who has the whole vision of the complexity? But there's complexity in everything. Now, when it's chaotic, when the cause is not equal to the effect, when you can't see the cause and the effect, karma is chaos actually, because there's a distance between the cause and the effect that people can't see anymore. And it can be, for example, these people maybe half an hour before were having a meeting in the northeast of Japan, and suddenly, I mean, I wouldn't have liked to be the person taking the photograph, and certainly after a few moments those same people there were being washed away. So when that sort of thing happens, nobody can see where it comes from, nobody can understand what it is, nobody, and so they say it's God's will, or, you know, something to do. And also when one simple act has an enormous effect, that's also what they call chaos these days. Now basically, we have to move away from the typical problem-solving mode, which looks at simple things and complicated things, and, you know, what's going on, let's solve the problem, let's get to it, let's attack the problem. It's not so easy anymore. We have to move, literally, to a mode of sense-making, that we make sense out of the things that are happening. That requires us to really have a bigger vision, and therefore Baba really helps us by helping us become, for example, Trikaldashi. That wider vision helps us to make sense of the craziness. And the narrow vision, which is like the problem-solving mode, we go into a problem, we make it worse, we go into a problem and we solve it, we create another problem when we solve it, like, for example, medicine. You have to take something for, some very powerful anti-inflammatory, but you also have to take 10 other things so that your stomach doesn't get burnt into holes, right? So one solution creates other problems because we're in that narrow-minded problem-solving mode. We have to look at the whole thing, appreciate the simplicity, understand better. If there's a complicated situation, there are many causes. I'm not going to try and enumerate all of them. If it's complex, I try to stand back and see the whole thing. And if it's chaotic, well, if we were Christians or Buddhists or Hindus, we'd have to pray. But we go into it's drama. Drama has become chaotic, definitely. There's no apparent sense to anything at the moment. So if you look at systems, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about the so-called chaos theory. There are three systems there. On the top left, there's an amoeba, a one-celled organism, unicellular organism. And next to it's a galaxy. They look pretty similar, don't they? And the third one is actually Sao Paulo, where I live, taken at night from a satellite. Also looks pretty similar. So in fact, whatever the rules are in this universe, they apply to an amoeba, and they also apply to a galaxy and everything in between. Everything, including human civilization. They are born, they grow, they mature, they die out, they're reborn. Everything. Plants grow, they mature, they wilt, they die out, they leave seeds, they grow again. And there are any living system, and this is where it's good to understand what chaos actually is. The description is that any living system which is dynamic, which is non-linear, which self-organizes, and I'm going to explain this later on, which is complex, and according to the level of complexity it's unpredictable, and it loses energy with time and use. So it obeys the laws of entropy. So these are any system, from an amoeba to a galaxy. My thinking, my mind is dynamic, it's not linear, it self-organizes. If I don't make one effort to change my thinking will self-organize, but not generally in the way that I want it. My life, my body, every cell in my body also is going through this. It's dynamic, non-linear, in different rhythms, the different cells. In fact, if 70% of our bodies are water, and the 30% that's left over, actually 60% of the 30% is actually bacteria, not even human. So we don't even control all of the cells in our bodies. Each of those bacteria has its own life, which is like, of the mass weight, it's like 60% of the, without the water. So actually human cells, we don't have too many. So I remember we were talking to Jagdish Bai about that, and they'd written this book about how to conquer sex lust. And they were laughing their heads off. And they were describing the body, how it's sort of as a bag of pus and bacteria and stuff, so how can you be attracted to it? Well, they changed the title of the book, it's called Brahmacharya now. So I think someone edited it, was a bit too heavy. But anyway, our bodies, our systems, our humans, it's our governments. They are dynamic, non-linear, self-organizing, and so on. Everything you can see is a living system that obeys the laws of chaos. So when there's power, there's order. When there's no power, there's disorder, basically, any system. So cancer, for example, is just total disorder of the cells, in a way. So the first lesson, and this is where it becomes interesting, and what I'd like everyone to do, someone's chaos is acting up in their cell phone. We carry around these personal molesters, which we call mobile phones. And our life cuts into our whatever's happening, right? So every one of us, there's a relationship in all of this between consciousness and the physical reality. And that includes the health of our bodies and the health of our lives and the health of our families and the health of our houses, everything. Health of our centres. The reality that forms around a group of people can never be better than their consciousness, in a way. So if you want to know yourself, have a look at the life that you've surrounded yourself by. See what's around you. Who decided? Who thought? Who made the decision to do this or to do that, to get married, to not get married, to get that job, to study this, to study that, to accept this, to reject that? Our reality is the result of our choices. And those choices are the result of what we were thinking, and therefore, Baba said today, awareness, attitude and vision. We create the world. We create our world with our awareness, attitude and vision, individually and collectively. So, and it's not just with human beings. We create the human ecosystem, but we don't necessarily create the beehives. Bees do that. We certainly affect the lives of bees and the lives of ants and the lives of dogs and the lives of cats. So all of the species together, those conscious energies are generating and sustaining their own little bit of reality. Yeah? If there were no consciousness, there'd be nothing. The other day Baba said, if I weren't here, nothing would be, there'd be nothing. I can't remember exactly the point. It's related to that. There'd be nothing. Nothing. So all of this matter takes shape because all of these people are feeding it with their thinking and their seeing and their forming and their desires and all of that. So we're generating cities, right? Who created Sydney? The people that lived here and have taken rebirth here, and the people that came here, right? Who else? Was it someone else who did it?
Developers.
Pardon?
The building developers.
Yeah, but who did that? It was people wanting and wanting, and then this and that, and so it was generated by the same people, and generally people take rebirth from the same place they create, and they're the same people that complain about the traffic, right? Because they're the same ones that created it. So, you know, it's a big thing. This is a picture of Sao Paulo. It's like 8 Manhattans. Now, I live in the middle of that, right? So every single thing there in any place, someone thought about. Every single thing. Even someone thought about transforming the nature from, you know, rocks into cement and petrol oil into petrochemicals, into plastics, and sand into glass, right? Trees into beams. And they thought about, and they built all of this stuff, right? And then they built things, they built ways to get around it, and then they built things to get around it, and they built places to go, and they built, through their desires, a huge consumer industry where you can go down to Coles or Woolies and, you know, then who's sustaining all that? It's not just the owners, right? It's all of these avid Coles goers or Woolies goers. So the big lesson here is, you know, if we don't change something, and Einstein said this, you've got to change the thinking that gave it life. You know, you just don't change things around and hope. And this is the big illusion that you reorganize something and you think you've actually changed something. You haven't changed anything. You just reorganize the same things. So you're in, you're out, you know. Just shifting chairs, musical chairs. But if you really want to change something, you've got to change the thinking. And this is what we learn and appreciate from Baba, because he gives us the challenge to change our lives in this crazy context, right? So if I don't change my thinking, I won't change anything. You know, you can put it off, you can blame, you can, you know, go through all sorts of permutations of the same mindset, but actually change will only happen when you change the way you see things, as Baba said today. And so the lesson here, and this is what we have to ask ourselves, what is the main change in my mindset that will have the biggest influence on my team? That's actually my life. What is the biggest change in my mindset that would have the biggest influence in my life? What do you think? Think about it. Is there something, because I can be passively just accepting, you know, the consequences of my past without really doing anything about it. That will just carry me forward, as it always has. Same. Is there something that I can change in my mindset that will stop me from, let's say, blaming others or looking at the defects of others or making excuses, or what do you think? That will bring me out of my malaise or bring me out of my rut if I'm in one, or that will, you know, reshape the things around me so that I can interact differently? Do I have to accept resignedly a situation without doing anything about it just because I don't have enough power? What do you think? What can you do? Tell the person next to you what sort of a thing that you could do in changing your thinking that would have a big influence in the way your life is going. Tell the person next to you or around you. If you're not near anybody, sit near someone. Sit near someone, okay? So I'm going to ask a few more questions. If you're far away from someone, go and sit near them. hard to do a sort of a workshop in a talk. So change the word team by the word life.
We are having a two language in one topic. Can be a comment. First thing came in my mind that when I see the possibility, first thing came in my mind.
Okay? What do you reckon? Would anyone like to share?
Positive attitude.
Positive attitude. Okay. But you already know that, right? You hear that every day in the morning. What you have to do is have a positive attitude towards having a positive attitude. You know, I'm a little bit lost here. You know, I'm talking here, but I don't see any clock, so I've got an idea how the time is going. When it's about 8:20, can someone give me a signal? Okay. And if you've got any questions, leave them. I'll leave 10 minutes at the end. So at 8:20, you know. There are several lessons, but I've picked only 4, which are more appropriate for us. Things are connected. Everything in the universe is connected with everything else. That's how it's so perfect and round, you know. Even if you looked at any point of Gyan and you just picked out 2 random points of a Gyan, you would be able to see the connection between them. You can connect anything with anything. That's why a journey is such a great pleasure. But it's also the reason why human beings are so connected. Microsoft did a study in 2006 looking at billions of SMS messages, and they proved something we already suspected, that we're only 6.6 people separated from everyone else. 6.2 people away from every other human being. That means I know you, who knows someone else, who knows someone else, who knows someone else, who knows someone else, and you only get 6. And the whole of humanity is covered. Anyone here know the Pope personally? No? I know a guy who is a friend of the Pope. You know me. No, that's how it works. So even some indigenous person on the high plains of Bolivia, he probably knows a priest, who knows a bishop, who knows an archbishop, who knows a cardinal, who knows the Pope, right? That's how it works. And that's why social networking is it's just taking advantage of a reality. People are connected and they've always been connected. Now we're only discovering that we are connected. Yeah. The thing is that if things are connected and you have a superficial vision, what's going to happen? You won't see the connections. Like here, this is a very interesting picture of Hawaii. And you can see very clearly that they're not islands, they're mountains. Islands are not islands, they're mountains in the sea. They're peaks, actually. of a mountain range in the sea. So if you go down deep, they're connected. Everything is connected at a deep level. So you look at all of the cultures and this is how it helps us. All of the cultures, all of the religions, all of the nationalities, all of the stuff, all of the words. There's so much variety. But if you go down deeper, 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 there's one thing that every single soul has in common. It's the original state. So if we want to serve people, we have to see what we have in common with them, whoever they are, or wherever they are. Even, let's say, the person who gets on your case, the person who, does anyone have a difficult person on their horizon? Do you have a difficult person on your horizon? Anyone? Could be even a BK, right? Once I asked a group of Brahmins if the person from whom I asked them to be brutally honest, and we're about 400 BKs in a retreat in Brazil, and I asked them if the person whom they most suffered was another Brahmin, and 60% put their hands up, yes. And he said, is that person still sitting in the room? Well, they were going to come, but they didn't. Anyway, if I have someone who's difficult for me, all I have to do is go down deep. And at a certain level, we're the same. We are the same. So who's better than who? Who's judging who? Maybe in another lifetime also I did the same thing that they're doing now, and that's why I'm suffering from it. That's if we have, and it's very good. Baba tells us to be trikaldashi, so we see the three aspects of time. It broadens our vision. But because we know about the history of the soul, we can deepen it also. So this whole thing of chaotic systems and everything is connected with everything else. If I don't see the connection, I will get lost. I will get lost. So the practical thing here, the question is, are there any deeper connections that I have to understand to serve better and to work with others? It's like homework. If I find myself typically or chronically complaining about something or someone, then how wide do I have to make my vision, and how deep do I have to make the vision to make that complaint go away, basically? Because if I see more, I'll understand more. If I understand more, I can make better decisions, basically. So this is a very, very good thing. And I can understand, what's happening when things are more and more chaotic, the connections are more and more closer together. So you've got every single soul has a karmic account to work out, right? And there ain't much time. And so they have to live near each other, because there's not time to settle all of the accounts. So they actually have to live on top of each other. And they have to work with each other. Otherwise, why would we be living in terrible, crowded cities when there's so much space around? It's not because we like each other, it's because we've got karmic accounts with each other. And there ain't much time. So we have to settle a lot of accounts in a short time, so the distances have to be closer. So chaos will help us understand why things are as they are. Everyone, there's a grid of roads, right? And all of these millions of people want to do different things at the same time on the same grid. So what happens in the traffic? Chaos. what happens if there's chaos moves around things like they're called the strange attractors. So in our living system, there's an energy basin, let's say, that's created around which the system reorganizes itself. So let's say there's a big truck crash on the highway to the Blue Mountains on a Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. It's a long weekend, right? It often happens. So what happens to the traffic? What do you call it? Chaos, right? But do you find any cars around at 4 o'clock the next morning? No. They've reorganized. And sometimes if the traffic is sometimes even if the cops come along, sometimes they make it worse. So they're already reorganizing. Unfortunately, I have got a picture, I have a video here that is not working, but I'll explain it. So that's a bit of homework. Third lesson is about self-organization. This is a big one. Who here is a little bit of a perfectionist? Who suffers because of that? You and the other people that have to work with you, right? You can't control chaos. You can't control others. You can't control actually anything. You can only control yourself. So obviously there's some problem up ahead, right? Again, the next day you won't find any cars here on that road, 4 in the morning. Now, nature's self-organised in an elegant fashion, right? But we don't do it too well, Look at how we're sort of sloppy about it. You go back. Oh, what have I done? Yeah. We're not so elegant. I had a video of an intersection in Hanoi that actually I took. It didn't come up, unfortunately, but I took at least 1 hour to cross the road. There were just, who's been to Hanoi here? Except for just morning. There are no cars hardly, just motorcycles and bikes. And there are practically no stoplights. And the traffic just flows and flows and flows, right? If you put stoplights, there'll be chaos. So it just sort of flows, and if you don't understand the flow, you're going to get run over. So you've got to sort of dance across the road,
Like Indian.
So I learned how to do it. Next time it was easier. It took me an hour to learn first time. So while nature does it very elegantly, that's where I have the video here. You can see him. It doesn't work, unfortunately. So the big lesson here is that we don't organise anything. What we do is we influence the way the things organise themselves. This is a huge lesson. We didn't know, for example, this program tonight, we didn't know who was coming. We set up a few parameters, right? It was going to be about this, but we didn't know who was going to come, or how many were going to come for dinner, or who was going to sit where, right? Everyone just came in and sat where they felt most comfortable. So you can sort of create parameters. And the best thing, if you want something to happen in a nice way, you've got to create the conditions for it to happen. People are like plants. What does a plant need? Water, sunlight, good soil, space, time, If you create healthy conditions, the people who work with you will grow, right? If you, your family will grow, or the centre will grow. All we have to do is create healthy conditions and things will thrive. Now what you can't do in that, you can't sit there expecting people to grow without any healthy conditions. Grow, you imbecile, grow. Come on. Grow or you're out. Come on. So that's our obligation, especially in Baba service. So the question here is, what are the three main parameters? This is homework, there's not enough time to do it here. What are the three main parameters that can assure healthy growth in the way that I live and do service? What can help, that I'll feel good because I'm growing, that things will grow because it's good, people will come because it's great, it's what you can't do is sort of, okay, this is it, and you sit there expecting it to happen. It won't happen. Happiness is produced. Happiness is like a golden egg. You have to have that type of goose. You can't have a common goose if you want a golden egg. You have the means of producing something if you want something. So am I doing, for example, am I creating conditions in which my own happiness can come up naturally, and therefore others will be happy? That's a big question. And the last one is about entropy. I mean, there are about 4 or 5 other lessons, but these are the ones I've selected. Too long otherwise. We're talking about maybe doing a book about something like this, right? And making it very practical for people. But everything goes through this, everything. Entropy is actually a measure of the loss of energy. It's not the process itself, it's the measure of the loss. So if entropy is increasing, it means the energy is getting less. So everyone's subject to that. And I had a great video here, it's also not going to come out. It's called 80 Years in 40 Seconds. You can look it up on YouTube. 80 years in 40 seconds. It's sort of a little boy's face that becomes an 80-year-old man while he's just speaking and saying the same things. The only things that stay the same are the eyes. So it's pretty amazing how they did it. But the 80 years in 40 seconds was there. So periodically we have to inject enthusiasm into ourselves. The only real negation of entropy is through connecting with Baba. He's the only entity really capable of putting energy back into the soul. So if I'm run down, everything around me will also run down, basically, individually and collectively. So where am I? This is something I've used a lot in it really helps. When things take birth, they grow, then they sort of peak out and they start to decline. Now at a certain moment there can be a new cycle. But if you're in an A phase, things are sort of ploughing ahead, there's very few things to do on the horizon. A B means that you've had a sort of an upgrade recently and you're feeling great. D is the death, denial, depression, deafness. You're not open, you're going out, decline. Goodbye, actually. C is when the new hasn't taken birth yet and the old hasn't gone away. So where am I? Am I in an A phase? Am I in Brahmin life? Just things are just plain sailing ahead. I've done everything I've had to, I'm just going to get there, no problems. Or am I in a B stage where I've reinvented myself recently and things are going nicely? Or am I in a C stage where there's chaos, confusion, I'm in a sort of a moment of dilemma and change, what am I going to do, have I done enough? Or am I in a D phase of denial and negation and, going downhill fast? Who thinks they're in an A phase spiritually? A. Who thinks they're in a B phase spiritually? Something new, something great, something flying ahead. Who's in a C stage? That means everyone else is D. It's an important question. Why? If I'm in an A phase, my choices and decisions are just really confirmations of things that I've already decided long ago. If I'm in a B stage, my choices and decisions are consolidations of recently made choices and decisions. If I'm in a C phase, my choices and decisions are urgent, otherwise I'll go to where? D. If I'm in D, it's not too late, but almost too late. I can go back, but I have to go back to C and then go to B. Right? This is important. You can't stay. One thing about chaos is nothing is constant. Yeah? Nothing is constant. Things are always changing. If I don't change, I will be changed, basically, and not in the way that I want. Yeah? So, just to sum up, question, what do I need to do to generate more enthusiasm myself in what I do in service, in myself and in what I do in service? What's my yukti for enthusiasm generating? Won't stay the same ever. Nothing stays the same ever. So you were great 20 years ago, so what? Doesn't have any relevance anymore. We can't live in the laurels of the past. We can't, live in nostalgia. We have to live in the present, and that has to be great. Yeah. So what am I doing to make my present great? So, basically, in chaos, there are three anchors. This is also something you can look into. One anchor is a sense of identity. Who am I really? Who do I belong to? All of that. The real spiritual identity will stabilize me in any chaotic situation. And if that's what I am, the sense of purpose is related to that. If that's what I am, this is what I do. Just like a light shines, what does a peaceful being do? It pieces, right? It gives peace. So if I hold on to my sense of identity, my sense of purpose is really powerful. And then that will give me a sense of direction. Where do I go? What do I do? Who am I? What do I do? Where do I go? So that's, when everything's sort of blowing up around me, they're the three things that will hold me stable. Okay, any questions? Probably 6,000 questions, right? Would anyone like to ask anything? Or say anything? This is like, it was a theatre-style presentation. It wasn't what I had in mind, but what to do. A lot of people came. Yeah.
I just want to ask this question in chaos. chaos could be of any dimension, physical.
Yeah, give me a mic. Can't hear you. I'm not such a great lip reader. Especially when you've got your finger in front of your mouth.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You know, chaos can be of any dimension. It can be physical, it can be in anything. And then once in Madhavan Surya was saying that when elements and everything are really revolting and there is difficulty, a yogi soul, it is the law of life that nothing can touch, nothing can come in harm. And he said it is high science and it is high psychology and everything. And then when connected with Baba, no harm can come. What are your thoughts about it and in relation to the chaos that happens around us?
Yeah, definitely. This is what I'm saying in this particular diagram. Chaos can be anything happening around. It can be a sort of an accident, a tragedy, an earthquake. You're in the middle of some, and Baba really does. That connection helps me. I remember I was in the Baker Street tube station in London in the 80s. It was a time when the IRA were blowing up tube stations and pubs. And the train comes into the station and there's an announcement over the loudspeaker. We have received information that there's a bomb in this station. Please leave the train tranquilly, calmly. What do you think people did? Please leave the train calmly. That's the last thing that they did. They just jumped out and treading all over each other to try and go up the stairs, up the escalator, everything. And I just looked at that commotion. I just remembered, well, if there's really a bomb and it goes off, there's nothing I can do. So, but I'm not going to go in that confusion. And I was just looking around, and I saw another exit that no one was going towards because it was further away. So I just walked calmly down to that and climbed up the stairs, got out of the station, and of course, after all, it was just a false alarm. I mean, all of us have had that sort of experience when you've got two options: go into the panic, go into the craziness, or remain calm and make a considered decision with Baba's help. That will always be there. Always, always, always. So you can be in the worst situation possible. And I've been in lots of them. You must have all had such experiences, right? Last time I was here in Australia, I was in a plane that was going, one of those small sort of regional planes that go from here to Canberra. And the plane, as it was coming in, there were gusts of wind, right? Really high gusts of wind. And the pilot landed on one wheel and then took off again because he couldn't land. The wind was turning the plane over, right? And I was sitting in the exit row, and before we left, the lady said, if I can't do it, you have to help me, You're prepared to help if there's an emergency. That's what they ask for people in the exit row, right? And she also said, well, if something happens to me, you have to help me. Okay, fine. I'm just sitting there. She's sitting in front of me, and I was sitting here, and she was like holding over white, You know what my thinking was? It was like, oh, wow. Landing on one wheel. He managed to get the the plane off the ground. What a great pilot. Oh, look at this poor lady, she's absolutely white, let me give her drishti, you know. And the plane went around and around and waited, you know, for a chance to land, otherwise it was going to go back to Sydney. And so people, I didn't realise it at the time, people were actually petrified and screaming in the back. I didn't hear them. Did not hear them. I just thought, oh, that was strange. What a great pilot. So you see, Baba, at that moment, when things are going crazy, you've got clarity. And it seems like time slows down even for you to make the decisions. Anyone had that sort of experience? Yeah. You know, an accident or something? It's like that, isn't it? So you see, we've got a great trump up our sleeve. Right? That we should make more and better use of, called Baba. What else? Anything else? I'm not saying, I'm sitting here, but I'm absolutely aware that I'm not an expert on these things, so don't make too hard a question. Yeah.
Is it sort of similar to saying that,
It's not on.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned in a chaotic situation, you know, best thing is to stay calm. In other words, is it similar to saying that the time is the best healer? So, you know, even if it is a chaos situation, give it some time and it'll organize itself. You don't have to really do anything, so that saves you from worrying.
It depends, you know. I mean, you have to be really in tune with Baba to make the right call, because it's really not a question of time always. Sometimes it's a question of being quick, you know. Sometimes you can wait, sometimes you can't wait. Now, if you're waiting when you shouldn't, when you should wait, and you're not waiting when you're waiting when you shouldn't wait, and you're not waiting when you should wait, you're going to get defeated. So whatever the call is, what to do, how to do, you know, you have to be very calm internally and very clear. Because there's a lot of thinking. This is what I was saying. Excess thinking weakens the soul and creates more excess thinking, because excess thinking is actually chaotic thinking. Too much and not enough, you know. It's too much and very little essence, very little power in it. So if you're thinking a lot, for sure, there are always one or two things which are the key things that you have to move. It's like that joke about the ship at sea that had an engine problem. They had to fly a guy across to sort of go and fix it up. You know, went down to the engine room, tightened up one screw, and he went to the captain and said, "Well, that's $100,000, please, or $50,000." "What do you mean? You just tightened up one screw." "But I knew which screw to tighten up. You didn't." It's a bit like that. In a big situation, there are one or two levers. There are one or two things, the few things that make the big difference. And that's a fascinating thing to train yourself to be able to see with Baba's help. You know, lots of details, lots of influences, lots of things going on. Okay, what are the two or three things that I have to focus on here? So focus moves systems differently. If I focus on what is really appropriate, the whole system around that will move differently. If I'm focusing on many things at the same time, I'm actually sustaining the craziness.
do you think it's a phenomena of the confluence age, or can one also imagine chaos in golden age, so to say?
No, always things have been dynamic, but the complexity was less. There was no complexity. Things were simple, really. Things were simple, things were ordered, things were natural. When that order broke down, the complexity started to grow more and more and more. And in fact, the Harvard Business Review recently described the times that we're living in as the times of permanent uncertainty. So, congratulations, folks. We're entering into the age of permanent uncertainty. Nothing will ever go back to the simplicity of the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or even the year 2000. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. Human systems are breaking down because the souls are. So I have to learn to see that, to help, because I have to help where the need is. You know? That's what real service is, actually. Even the people coming to the Brahma Kumaris are less powerful than they used to be, so all sorts of crazy things start to happen. I was saying to someone today, keep the high ground. You know, keep the high ground. Stay. And I just finish off with a story. Bridge Mohan told us this story in February that he went with Daddyji to Delhi. Daddyji was visiting Delhi, of course he's from Delhi. And there was a program at 5 in the afternoon, and Daddy had some space in the afternoon free. And so they took her to a helicopter exhibition. Someone had contact in the Air Force, I don't know, you know how it is. Let's fill in Daddy's time with something interesting and maybe get some contacts with the Air Force. Anyway, they're sitting there in a lovely afternoon, the sun is shining, and they're waiting for this helicopter exhibition that never actually happened. And Bridge Mars told us that he was sort of pacing up and down, fuming, his nostrils, sort of smoke coming out of his nostrils, sort of really upset because how can they use Daddy's time like this? And so he found the brother who was responsible, tried to tear him apart, you know, verbally. And while he's doing this, he looks up and glances at Daddy, and Daddy's just sitting there in bliss, just enjoying the sunshine. And he just said, what am I doing? What am I doing? You know, we have to keep that state. Doesn't matter what's going on around us. And that will feed the flames of the yajna, that sort of yoga. That sort of stage is what we need if helicopter exhibitions don't happen. Okay? So thanks very much for your kind attention and just sharing a few thoughts. People requested me to talk about this subject, so I put something together. Om Shanti.